happen to somebody else, and then you're like, oh my word. That's scary.
Miss Davis, is that worksheet the last one we're having for this week?
Your last daily grade.
Okay.
I mean, I'm gonna give you another one later this week, but, so. Alright, so here we go. We're gonna do 4.2b. This is the last thing that we wrote on our last lesson, alright? We talked about domain and range. We talked about on a unit circle, since the x's only go from -1 to +1, then since x is cosine, the cosine of any angle will be from -1 to +1. Okay? And y goes from -1, so sine goes from -1 to +1. So if I ask you to tell me, what's the angle that has a cosine of 4.3? What is the cosine? What is the angle that has a cosine of 4.3? What would you say?
Nothing.
Yeah, that's right. It's nothing. It's not possible, guys. It only goes from -1 to +1, so it's not possible. All right? And then we talked about a periodic function, which is just a repeating function. We talked about where it starts to repeat is called 1 period. All right? And we learned that this number c is actually 2 pi all the way around the circle, because once it goes all the way around the circle, then it starts repeating itself. And so that's where this definition right here comes from. All right? I can add that 2 pi to any function and get the same function value. The sine of pi over 3 plus 2 pi is the same as the sine of pi over 3. All right? Okay, so now we're going to finish. We're going to finish this section, and then I'm going to give you some problems to work, and then next class, which is Wednesday, I'm going to start on 4.4. 4.4 is, it's going to seem easy when you're doing it, all right? But it's a lot of stuff. It's pulling a lot of stuff together. And then we'll probably take Friday, and I'll give you a worksheet and let you work on it in class, so that I can help you with it if you need help. And then I think we'll have a test the next Thursday. I'll probably go on and teach you other things, but that will give you some time. If you would like to check out a book, there are some books on the counter over here. Don't get the ones down there on my bookshelf, but there are some on the counter, and in the second cabinet, the door's a little bit ajar, there are some there. You find your sheet on that cabinet right there, which will say pre-cal 6th period. You remember on the back of your book, there are two, here they are right here. There are 2 of these little stickers, all right? You're gonna write the small number down, okay? And then, really, really important, put your name in your book so that if you accidentally walk off and leave it in here, you don't have to look through all the books to figure out which one's yours. We'll just look at all, you can look at the names instead of having to look at all these numbers. All right, so everybody ready?
Yes.
So we're looking at having a test when?
Thursday.
Thursday, next Thursday. Not this Thursday, because you're not gonna be in this class on Thursday, okay? But next Thursday, so actually the test will be Wednesday, Thursday, all right? Y'all listen to me, it's over 4.1 through 4.4. Everything that you have learned, 4.1 through 4.4, okay? So that's why I'm not giving it to you as soon as I finish teaching it. I'm gonna give you some time that you can work some problems. If you get a book, I'll show you where some problems are to work at inside the book. If you're like, Ms. Davis, can I have some extra problems? There's probably 100 problems in that book. You can have some extra problems, all right? So at the end of the chapter, it'll say problems over 4.1, problems over 4.2, problems over 4.3. And so I would, work some 4.1 through 4.4. All right, so here we go. The next thing that you need to know is even and odd functions. Okay, even and odd functions. So, f of negative then my function is even. Now, what happened to the negative sign?
Got rid of it.
Yeah, it just went away, okay? If it's an even function and you have a negative angle in here, it just goes away. All right? Now, if you have f of negative x is equal to the opposite of f of x, what happened to that negative sign? What did he do?
Just took it out.
He pulled out front. He was in here on the angle, but now he's just out front, okay? So he wasn't here on the angle, now he's on the function. So this negative pulls out front. This is an odd function, okay? So you have to know who is even and who is odd. Who is even and who is odd. So I'm gonna move that. All right, so let's do the even functions first. Now, whatever a function is, his reciprocal will be also, okay? Whatever a function is, his reciprocal will be that also. So that tells me now, I'm like, oh, okay, I don't have to memorize 6, I only have to memorize
3.
3, okay? Because you know what the reciprocals are, or you're supposed to, all right? So, I'm gonna tell you that cosine is even and secant is even. All right, so what does that mean? That means that the cosine of negative t is equal to what?
Cosine of t.
Yeah, the cosine of t. The negative just goes away, guys. All right, and also the secant of negative t is equal to the secant of t. Even functions are symmetrical symmetric to the y-axis. All right, symmetric to the y-axis. All right, let's look at the odd ones. Okay, the odd ones are sine of t. And if sine is, what else is?
And
Cosecant. Okay, and then also tangent, and what's his reciprocal?
cotangent.
Cotangent. All right, let's talk about what this says. This says that the sine of negative t is equal to what?
The negative sign.
Yeah, the negative sine of t. He just pulls out front, that's all he does. This one right here says that the cosecant of negative t is equal to the opposite of the cosecant of t. You should be able to write all the rest of them. The tangent of negative t is equal to the opposite of the tan of t. The cotan of negative t is equal to the opposite of the cotangent of t. Okay, now listen to me. All I'm asking you to remember right now, this other stuff, this is gonna come back into play again, all right? But right now, all I'm asking you to remember is who is even and who is odd. That's all I'm asking you to know. Who is even and who is odd. Tell me, how could I do that in the easiest fashion? What one thing do I have to know?
Cosecant or cosine and secant
Yeah,
is even.
y'all, that's all you have to know. Cosine is even. If cosine is even, who's odd? Sine and tangent, and then their reciprocals are the same as them. You got it? All right, you need to know that. Okay, so the next thing we're gonna do. I'm gonna go to another page. I'm gonna have to go find some more paper too. All right, so this we're going to evaluate trig functions with a calculator. Now, As soon as I say you're using a calculator, what should you be thinking about these problems? What kind of problems will these be on the test? Huh?
Word problem?
No, well, they could be, but no, are they gonna be difficult problems?
Yes.
What? People, you're using a calculator. Who's doing all the work?
Unless you don't have your calculator.
And that will be the problem, okay? Caden will, there it is, right there. So what's gonna happen is I'm gonna teach you the first set, and the first set, you're gonna be like, oh man, I got this. Some of you are gonna quit paying attention, so the second set, you're gonna be lost. And then the third set, it changes it a little bit more, and then the fourth set gets even a little bit harder, okay? So, pay attention, don't be slackers. All right, so the first thing you need to remember to use the correct mode. Okay, remember to use the correct mode. So if I'm doing radians, you need to be in radians. If I'm doing degrees, you need to be in degrees. How will I know if it's in degrees?
Clicking mode, it'll tell you.
No, it won't tell you. It'll tell you how.
By clicking mode.
Yeah, it'll have a little degree sign on the angle, okay? And then you'll be like, oh, this must be in degrees. Don't be like last class where someone said, oh, I thought that was raised to the 0 power. Like, what? No. So don't do that. It's a degree sign. How will I know if it's in radians?
It won't have anything.
It won't have anything, so it's not gonna say radians, all right? It's just not going to have a degree sign. All right, are you ready? So this is example 4. I'm gonna do, the first one with you, and then I'll get you to do the second one, then I'll do the third one with you, and then I'll get you to do the fourth one. These should be pretty easy. All right, I want the sine of 2 pi over 3. The sine of 2 pi over 3. Okay, so what's the first thing I want to do on my calculator? Yeah, I want to make sure I'm in the right mode. Obviously, I'm in radians because it doesn't have a degree sign. And when it has a pi, then I usually go, okay, that's probably radians. So I'm going to go to mode right here, okay? I'm going to go down to the, it used to be the third one, but now they've put this Math Print and Classic up there. So we're going to go down to radians. You have to click on it to make it switch over. Mine was in degrees, okay? And then I'm going to go second and quit. Anybody got a question? Okay, so now all I want to do is just punch this in my calculator, okay? I'm going to go the sine of, notice that when I press the function button, it automatically opens up a parentheses, okay? Later on, that's going to come back into play, later today, not later this year or later next week or something, but today. So that's going to come back into play. We're going to go 2 pi divided by 3. You can also use the fraction button if you want to. One of the things is, in a little bit, there's going to be a time where you have to use the fraction button. So if you're one of those people that are like, I don't want to have to remember when I can use it and when I can't, I'm always going to use it. That's okay, nothing wrong with that. You can either close your parentheses or not close it, okay? That's why this my calculator is like a guy. He's not proper, okay? So I press enter. It is proper to round a trig function off to 4 decimal places. So this is going to be what?
0.8660.
Very good. 0.8660. Is the 0 important?
Yeah.
Yes, the 0 says I rounded off to 4 decimal places, which is what is standard. If you looked in, okay, so like a long time ago, when I was in school and stuff, like I had some of my daddy's math books from when he was in college and stuff, and if you look at those books, we didn't have calculators, okay? So we had giant charts that hung on the wall, all right? And they would say the sine of 1 and the sine of 2 and the sine of 3 and the sine of 4 and the sine of 5. And it would go down and it would just be like a big giant map. okay? But it was just a trig chart, and they hung on the wall, and that's what we had to use, okay? So we didn't just punch it in our calculator like y'all did. All right, and they're all to 4 decimal places. Here's yours. I want you to try this one. Oh, go back to mine. See your floating at 2, go down to float. Yeah. You're welcome. Did you change it? Yeah. All right, tell me what y'all got.
.3057.
What?
0.3057.
Okay, 0.3057. Now look, what did you have to do? What was the first thing? Remember this right here, guys?
Switch it
Yeah,
to.
the very first thing you had to do was you had to go to your mode and you had to change it to degrees, okay? And then you had to go to the tangent of 17.3057. Now, I'm gonna show you something, I never do this, but some of the kids like this, so I don't really care, okay? The kids were the ones that told me, because I'm not, I've told y'all before, I'm not a techie or a computer person, so I don't like look at for ways to do problems. I'm like, if you just tell me one way, I'm like, okay, I got it. But if I leave this thing in radians, okay, and then I put the tangent of 17, and I go to second and angle, and I choose the degree sign, and I tell it it's degrees, then it will take it. So you could leave it in radian mode all the time, but you would have to put the degree sign on there, okay? So I don't care how you do it, that's too many buttons for me, but, whatever you like, okay? Because you're the one that's trying to learn it and make it great. All right, so here's your next one. I'm gonna put the next 2 up here, okay? Okay, you got it?
Thanks.
All right, so tell me what you got for this first one.
.99756.
All right, what mode should I be in?
That's, that was,
Radians. Radians. How do I know this is radians? It doesn't have a degree sign, okay? Y'all listen to me, okay? I'm telling you, if it doesn't have a degree sign, it's in radians, all right? It's in radians. It is not going to say radians. Radians doesn't have a unit of measure. It's called radians, but we don't have a symbol, okay? So I'm gonna have to go back to my mode. I'm in radians, okay? So I'm going to go the cosine of 4. Negative 0.6536. Okay, now what do I need to do? Yeah, I'm gonna go back to degrees. You can use the degree sign if you want to, that's perfectly fine. And I'm gonna go the sine of 45, and it's gonna say 0.7071. Okay, now I could check this guy right here, right? Think about the 45-45 triangle. Sine is opposite over hypotenuse. Tell me what the exact value of this is. 1 over square root of 2. So I could go 1 divided by the square root of 2. See what I'm saying? Okay? So the difference between those two things are an approximate and an exact. An approximate and an exact. Rounded off, not rounded off. Okay? So anytime they ask for an exact answer, they're telling you not to use your calculator. Okay? That's going to be a big deal to us. We're going to talk about that. All right, so here's my next one. Are you ready? I'm going to do, hey, wait. Leave me a little space in between here because I want to write something. All right, so I'm going to move mine down just a tad. Okay, so this one we're going to do cosecant of pi over 8. Cosecant of pi over 8. Now the first thing I see is that I need to be in the radian mode. With me?
Yep.
Okay, the next thing I see is what?
There's no.
There is no cosecant button, okay? There is no cosecant button. So, here's what you're gonna have to do, all right? You're going to have to use his reciprocal function. Do you understand how you still have to know all this stuff? Do you see what I'm saying? Y'all, whenever I teach you something, you're gonna use it for the rest of the rest of the semester. And really into the next semester because we missed 3 weeks of school. And normally it goes into the next semester 2 weeks. We're probably gonna pull it in there maybe 4. I don't know. I got some stuff we gotta get done, okay? I got some stuff we need to do. So we're gonna look at that, but you're gonna have to know it. So, what's his reciprocal function? Sine. So y'all listen to me. This is what you're trying to do. I'm trying to do 1 over sine pi over 8. I want to take the sine of the function and then take its reciprocal, okay? I want to take the sine of the function and then take its reciprocal. Okay, so first rule. Here's the first rule. Write this down. If you use the reciprocal function you must use the reciprocal button. Yeah. Okay? Does anybody know what the reciprocal button on your calculator is?
Nope.
Okay, so let me ask you this. If I, if I want to take the reciprocal of 4, what is it?
1 over 4.
1 over 4. If I want to take the reciprocal of 7, what is it?
1 over 7.
1 over 7. If I want to take the reciprocal of 2/3, it's actually 3/2. But isn't that equivalent to 1 over 2/3?
Yeah.
So whenever you put 1 over a number, it takes its reciprocal. So there's a button on my calculator. It's this button right here, x to the minus 1. Okay? X to the minus 1. Because watch what happens. Let's go 4 x to the minus 1. Now what's the reciprocal of 4? 1 over 4. 0.25. 3, what's the reciprocal of 3?
0.3.
1/3, which is 0.3333 repeating, right? Does everybody get it? Okay, so that's my reciprocal button. So my reciprocal button is x to the minus 1. When am I going to use the reciprocal button?
When
When you use the reciprocal function, all right? Now, I'm going to just tell you this right now, and we're going to write it down after we do it, okay? So let's look at these two right here, okay? One of these is a number, okay? We can call it like a side, all right? And one of them is an angle. Do you see it? An angle and a number, a side. An angle and a side. An angle and a side. An angle and a side. Does everybody understand? Okay? If you think about a triangle has angles and sides. Do you agree?
Yep.
Which one of those is on the inside of the triangle? The angles or the sides?
The angle.
The angles are on the inside, okay? And the sides are on the outside. You get it? All right. What do I have right here? An angle or a side?
Angle.
An angle. People, pi over 8 is an angle, okay? Right, it's in radians, so it's an angle. If it was in degrees, it'd be an angle. All right, so I have an angle, so I'm looking for my side. So my x to the minus 1 is going to be on the outside. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to rewrite this. as the sine. I'm using the reciprocal function, so I have to use the reciprocal button. I'm looking for a side, so my x to the minus 1 goes on the outside. Okay, so here's what I'm going to put in my calculator. I am going to be in radians, which I'm in. I'm going to go the sine of pi over 8. Oh, I need to make sure that this is written as a fraction, sorry. So I'm going to have to go alpha and, oh, I don't have to this one, but I'm going to. I'm going to teach you to do it, okay? So pi goes on the top, 8 goes on the bottom. Here's what I'm going to say. When the x to the minus 1 goes on the outside, it doesn't really matter. But anytime, I'm going to teach you that anytime you use the reciprocal button, you might want to put this in fraction form, okay? Close the parentheses and x to the minus 1. That'll keep you from having to remember. And my answer is 2.6131.
Can we like not have that though? Because it should be like
I'm
negative
sorry,
1
what?
to 1.
Can't you do this? Is that what you said? Yes, you
No,
can.
like, doesn't it have to stay between negative 1 and 1?
No, that's only for sine cosine.
That is, yeah, that's for sine and cosine. This is cosecant. Thank you, Jacob, because that like went, my brain went, what? And then I was like, okay, yeah, that's only for sine and cosine. This is cosecant. And what's gonna happen is after I finish teaching 4.4, when we do 4.5, that's graphing, you'll start to see what happens to this function. It'll make more sense to you. But yes, that is only the sine and cosine functions are restricted to between -1 and +1. And I'm not doing the sine function, guys. This is the cosecant function. Okay? All right, are you ready to try one? Here's yours. Cotangent of 3 pi over 7. Cotangent of 3 pi over 7. If I were you, I would rewrite it the other way so that then when you want to go back and study, you'll have some notes or some examples that show you how I want you to rewrite it. All right, everybody got it?
No.
Okay, what's the reciprocal function of cotangent? Tangent. If I use the reciprocal function, I have to use the reciprocal button. So where does the x to the minus 1 go? Inside or outside the parentheses?
Outside.
Outside, because you're looking for a side. You already have an angle, guys. You're not looking for an angle, okay? So he goes on the outside. So this is what I'm going to put in my calculator. So I'm going to say the tangent, I need to be in radians, which I'm still in, of 3 pi over 7, close the parentheses, and then close, darn. Oh, dang it. This is what always happens to me. So then I have to go back and fix my mistake. Takes 100 deletes to fix one mistake. All right, and then x to the minus 1. So 0.2282. Is that what y'all got? Okay. All right, so let's try the next one. Can I just write the next two down and you do them?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
That's 132, right?
Yes? right? Reciprocal function. Reciprocal button. Make sure you changed your mode to degrees. Negative 4.1336. Yes?
Yep.
I got something different. I don't need degrees.
Does your calculator look like that?
No, or
No?
never mind. I'm just kind of.
Okay, so, now I'm gonna write something down, and right now, it's not, you're kinda gonna think, well, that's, why are you writing that down, Ms. Davis? But, because it's fixing to come into play, okay? And I tried to teach it to you this way, so here's what I did, okay? When you have to use the reciprocal function, what you're actually doing is you're using the reciprocal function and taking that function of this angle, and then you're taking the reciprocal of the number. That's why the -1, the reciprocal button goes on the outside. You wanna do this first, okay, and then take the reciprocal of it, all right? We're fixing to find angles. So I'm gonna give you sides, and you're gonna find angles, and it's gonna be just the opposite, all right? Because you're gonna be looking for an angle, and your little x to the -1 button has to be on the inside instead of on the outside. So what happens is that kids get messed up, and they forget. You get on a test, and you get a little stressed, and you go, oh my gosh, which one goes where? So I just made up a stupid way for you to remember, okay? So this is your stupid way. So remember, if you're trying to find, okay? If you're trying to find a side, that's just a number, okay? That's just a number. Then, your little x to the -1 goes on the outside. If you're trying to find an angle, all right, then your x to the -1 goes on the inside. Now, here's the reasoning behind that, all right? Here's the reasoning behind that. Angles are inside a triangle, sides are outside. Okay, so this is my little thing right here that I remember. Angles are on the inside, sides are on the outside. If I'm looking for an angle, my little x to the -1 goes on the inside, because that's where they are. Sides are on the outside. So then my little x, my reciprocal button has to be on the outside. Okay, so, we're gonna find all these angles, and I'm gonna tell you that I want them in degrees. And I want them to round to the 100th. Okay, round to the 100th. Tell me what that means.
Third decimal place.
How many?
Third.
Two decimal places. 100 has 2 zeros.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, 2 decimal places. All right, so here's the first one. Now, we've done one like these in your little word problems in 4.3, okay? So, sine of theta is equal to 3/4. Okay, so do you understand the difference between this kind of problem and this kind of problem? Look down here. Do you know an angle? No, people, that's what it says, the sine of theta, the sine of x, the sine of y, the sine of a, the sine of alpha. This is my variable. It just happens to be a Greek alphabet because that's what we use in trig, okay? I know the side, do you see how these are sides, okay? I know the sides, but I don't know the angle, all right? So I'm looking for the angle, Anytime you're looking for an angle, now see, here's where it's gonna get confusing. Anytime you're looking for an angle on your calculator, you have to use these inverse functions. Do you see them? See these up here? Now, what do they have in them?
-1.
That little -1, okay? So that little -1 has nothing to do with the reciprocal button. He's telling you he's an inverse function. When do you use an inverse function? When you're looking for an angle, okay? So if you need to, write that on your paper. Only use inverse functions if looking for an angle. Okay? Now remember all the different ways that I could write. I'll show you sine. Y'all listen to me. I'm only doing one, but they can all be written this way. Alright? I can go sine to the -1. I can call it inverse sine. Do you remember us writing all these down? And the other one is I can call it arc sine. I can do every function that way, but these are, that's the way you're gonna rewrite. Okay, so we're gonna take this guy right here and we're gonna rewrite him as an inverse function. And this is what it looks like. The inverse sine of 3/4 is equal to my angle theta. Okay, he's telling me I have to be in degrees, so I'm just gonna make sure my calculator's in degrees. Now look, I could write this a bunch of different ways. I could write inverse sine, 3/4. I could write arc sine, 3/4. They're all the same thing, okay? They're all the same thing. I'm gonna make you do some problems and I wrote them all different ways, okay? So on these, second, oh, I'm gonna make sure I'm in degrees, so I'm good. So I'm gonna go second and sine. There's my inverse sine of 3/4. I'm rounding off to 2 decimal places because that's the hundredths place, and it's gonna be what?
48.59
48.59 what?
degrees.
Degrees. Very good. Degrees. All right, so I'm gonna give you 2 more. Are you ready?
Sure.
Okay, so here's yours. Cosine theta is equal to -7/10, and tan theta is equal to 1. So in this first one, you're just gonna go inverse cosine of -7/10, 134.43. Is that what y'all got? Good. 134.43 degrees. On this last one, I'm gonna go inverse tan of 1 is equal to theta. Theta is equal to, so then I go second and tan of 145. And I know that's right, because tangent is opposite over adjacent. On a 45/45, that's my 1 over my 1. That is my 1. Okay? Now, let's make them a little more difficult, okay? Let's do some of those functions that are not on the calculator, because that's what's gonna involve some stuff. That's where this part right here is gonna come into play. Because now I'm looking for an angle, so where's my x to the minus one gonna be?
Outside. Or inside.
Where are angles?
Inside.
Inside, so it's gonna be on the inside, okay? So I'm gonna do one, and then I'll give you two. So the first one that I'm gonna work with you is secant theta is equal to 8/3. Now, I could write it like that, okay? Or it could be written like this. Inverse secant of 8/3 is equal to theta. Either one of those, okay? Or it could say arc secant of 8/3 or inverse secant of 8/3. All those are the same thing, all right? So do you have a secant button?
No.
No, so what function do we have to use?
The inverse.
Yeah, not as inverse, is what? Reciprocal. If you use the reciprocal function, you have to use the reciprocal button, okay? So I'm gonna go inverse cosine. Is this the reciprocal button?
No.
Y'all, that is not the reciprocal button, that's an inverse function, okay? That's telling me I'm looking for an angle. So 8/3. Now, I have to use the reciprocal button. Does that little x to the minus one go inside these parentheses or outside these parentheses?
Outside.
Inside. I'm looking for an angle. Angles are inside. Do you understand how it gets confusing? So, in my calculator, I'm going to go secant and cosine. And now, y'all, you have to use the fraction button, okay? You have to use the fraction button. So alpha and y equals, and I got an 8 on the top and a 3 on the bottom. Make sure you come out of that fraction and then press your x to the minus 1, and then you can close your parentheses. I should have gotten 67.98 degrees. Yes?
Yep.
All right, here's U2.
That's 7 and 5, right?
To what?
That's 7 and 5.
7/5? Is that what you were asking? Hey, are these y'all's papers? Yeah, y'all don't leave your papers out of your box. Y'all got a bunch of papers back here. I'm fixing to give you some problems to work if you want to come and get your papers before you start working on them. And if you want to check out a book, you're more than welcome to do that too. You're still welcome to, if you don't want to check out a book, you're still welcome to like snap pictures of books that are in here if you don't want to check one out. If you check one out, you're responsible for it. It's a college book. It's probably going to cost a lot if you mess it up or lose it. Okay, negative 13.09.
No work.
Okay. On this one,
I'm still working.
cosecant, what's the reciprocal of cosecant?
Cosine.
No, sine. You have to know those, guys. 7/5. I'm looking for an angle, so it goes on the inside. And theta should be, what'd y'all get?
45.
How do I know it's an angle? I'm looking for a theta. Okay, and you're using an inverse function. If you're using an inverse function, the only time you use an inverse function is when you're looking for an angle. Okay? So 45.58 degrees. Anybody got a question? No, everybody good? Okay, I'm gonna give you some problems to work, okay? There's you 20 problems right there. I will put the answers up here before you leave, but I want you working on those problems.
At least for a grade.
No, I'm putting the answers up there. This is just for you to practice. If you don't practice on it, what? You're not gonna do well on the test, okay? And this is really not enough practice. I mean, you're gonna need to practice some before the test. So get started on those. Tell me when you get ready, and I'll pop the answers up there. We'll do that before y'all leave. What time do y'all leave?
45. Announcement started at 35.
Let me
God,
guess soon.
there's that much time left?
Oh, no.
No.
The 35, there's 30 minutes. It shouldn't take you 30 minutes.
It's gonna take. It's gonna take a bit, it's just to write it all down.
This sign a book out over there. There's all those pink papers over there. Yeah, I'm just gonna turn that off.
Do I vote? I forgot to say.
No, read the directions on there. Okay, can I, just because I'm recording, can I pop the answers up here on the recording? If you don't wanna look at them, don't look at them, okay? I mean, oh my word. I'm fixing to put them up there again. I'll put them up there in a little while and you can check yours with it and take a picture or whatever you want. We're not turning it in, people, okay? But I did wanna give these people, a chance that were like,
Does five say,
watching the video or something.
does five say cosine of 10 pi or?
Yeah.
Nine.
Okay? All right, so I'll come back and put it up there. I'm gonna turn the light on, you can turn my video off.